Welcome to the show. Today we are doing something I think is a first for us, Jacob. We are talking very much political. We are veering politics today, but we're also talking educational too. So it's not one thing, but we wanted to talk about why Trump won and what it means for education. So let's talk about it. I'm going to give you two of my thoughts as to why Trump won, Jacob, and then you could tell
Okay.
me your thoughts as to why. I do want to say, first of all, that the first thing of the two is that I think people were blinded a little bit by a lot of Trump voters who weren't being counted. And when I say not being counted, they weren't being counted by the polls, nor were they being, was the public even aware? So it's related to, I think, why he won in the sense, and I'll get to that right now. But um, the day before the election, my friend texted me, "Hey, look at this poll. Kamala's ahead. This New York Times poll." And I mentioned to him that he has to adjust those numbers. And may have been a few days before the election. I might be off on that. I told him he has to adjust those numbers for the Republicans who aren't participating in the polls because of their distrust of the media, and for the Republicans that are lying to pollsters. There are Republicans who are telling the pollsters that they're voting for Kamala. Why did I say that to my friend? For the same reason why there are Republicans in society who lie to their friends or their coworkers. And they tell them, I'm voting for the Democrat, because a lot of people don't want the tension. They don't want the fight. They don't want the labels of, oh, so you're in favor of the insurrectionists? Oh, you're in favor of the Nazi? People don't need that. They don't want it. So I mentioned that, and my friend did not know what I was talking about. He said, that cannot possibly be. So I feel like there's a lot of people who weren't being addressed, and their needs weren't being addressed. They weren't being mentioned, and they were maybe being in fact disrespected in a way. So I want to just say, to sort of reinforce that point, do you know how many Latinos, what percentage of Latinos supported Trump?
45%, if I think I'm pretty correct. Yeah.
Yeah, my number was 43, so that sounds about right. And it's the biggest Latino support for any Republican president ever.
I think males was 55, if you're just saying male, Latino. Yeah.
And so this is a group that was just this assumption that Latinos are all in for the Democrats, and I feel like there's this that's kind of in a way ignoring, but also disrespectful. How about this number? What is it? The percentage of Latinos who are in favor of sending, or in favor of Trump's plan to give him authority to shut down the US border, 64%, which I believe is up 20%.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. They support giving authority to shut the U.S. borders if there are too many immigrants. 38% support sending undocumented immigrants back, and that's up from 2021. That's up from 28%, 10% jump. So you have these numbers that suggest, no, things have changed. And you want to know how many Latinos describe themselves as Latinx?
I don't know anybody who says Latin, except I shouldn't say I don't know anybody. I know very few. I hardly know anybody that says they're Latinx. There's a couple of people I know, but that's just not a term Latinos use. right? I'm thinking 10%, 12%.
4%. So you have this big
Right.
voting block that was ignored. And it's the refrain I've just said repeatedly. My dad and I used to talk about this. Why are Latinos ignored? Almost every election block, even when they go Democrat, they're still ignored. So there's that. And then one last thing. So that growing minority, that growing support for Trump, I think, kind of turned the election. Um, I do want to say too is that you had the California is a blue state, but a lot of people came out, and it kind of swung it to the popular vote, and other blue states did that too. But uh, last thing I will say, so it's the first thing, Latino support. The other thing is that I feel like you heard a constant barrage of what Trump is from the Democratic candidate. You know, he's this, we heard a lot about January 6th. We hear a lot about Nazi, fascist, this type of thing. Well, we didn't hear enough about what she had to say about her. It's not enough to paint the other side. You have to tell us what you are going to do. And I started thinking about this in the sense, by the way, my comedian friend, I have a comedian friend who, even the day after the election, he's sitting there telling me, but John Kelly, former chief of staff, uh, says he's going to run as former chief of staff for Trump says he's going to run as a fascist. And I tell him, nobody cares. We know all that already. Nobody knows who John Kelly is, I told him, except you and me and a few other people who follow this kind. Nobody knows this guy. Nobody cares. They want to know what
Yeah.
you're going to do for the economy. Last thing I was thinking about, because all we have is comparisons. We can only compare this candidate to other candidates and so forth. But I was comparing Vice President Kamala Harris to other candidates, Democrat candidates in the past. And just so I could say this, count me as the person who voted for Trump and lied to people. So I'm going to say this right now, I'm a liar. I
Shame on
don't
you.
want to be. So I'm going to tell you, I have told people, yeah. Sure. Yeah. I'm with you. I believe what you believe. Sure. Because I don't want the tension at work. I don't need it. I have enough tension at work when I walk into class sometimes with some students, or not so much tension with students, but enough pressures that I don't need it from coworkers. I don't need it in my life. When I go to the comedy clubs, some comics agree with me, but it's not as much. It's not as one-sided over there. But so I, full disclosure in that sense, I'm one of those. I feel a lot more freedom to tell people what I believe now, though, because some people look at this victory from Trump as a mandate. Last thing about my point about telling people who you are, what you're going to do for the American people, as opposed to constantly painting your opponent negatively. But I was thinking about Obama and Clinton, and I can't remember that much of McCain bashing from Obama. I can't. I'm sure people might, jog my memory and maybe tell me otherwise, but I don't remember it so much, and I don't
No.
remember Clinton doing that too. I know. I'm sure. I know there was the general things candidates do, in the the nomination process, the election process, but I don't remember it like this. Um, Obama to McCain or Clinton to Dole.
Right.
Um, so, those are some of the
Well, I think
reasons
that
where
might can I just say something? Maybe do you think that might be because of that kind of bashing, we have a lot more people not handling the election results very well. I mean, they got themselves on X or on other social media platforms, and you just see this meltdown. Do you think it's because maybe um, all the negative talk that was said before the election from the Kamala Harris, people.
So, are you saying we're seeing people melt down because of the bashing prior to the election?
Right. Do you think that's because that might be why we have so much more? It seems like maybe we had this much in
I
2016. I don't remember, but I do. This one seems like
Yeah,
there's a lot more.
yeah, I do, and I also think that I'm getting that and shock. So people are still in that mode of anger and wanting to paint this brush of you know the extremist brush on Trump and his fall, on his supporters, but also this shock because I think I advised some of my friends to not just watch CNN, but to look at other outlets. Um, Also read books, and I'm not talking about book. That sounds very elitist, and I'm not saying read books. I'm saying read fiction books. Broaden your horizons, broaden your tastes, because if you just watch CNN and MSNBC, maybe you're going to. I think it's going to feed your anger. And yes, I also mean Fox.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but just watch Fox. That's important.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you
I
shared
would
that.
talk.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just going to also add regarding you telling people who you voted for because you're in education and you said normally you like kind of lie to them, but now you feel like you're able to
Yeah,
say who you voted for or at least be more confident, not confident, but more honest of who you voted for. Uh,
yeah.
and how are your colleagues taking that? Are they okay with that? Are they, you know?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm not sure if not that I care. I'm just free to talk if somebody brings it up. So the comedian brought it up the next day.
Yeah.
I just said, I'm going to speak because the people have spoken.
Yeah.
It's not alone here. I had an interesting talk with another comedian friend who called me, and he asked me a lot of questions. He's a very thoughtful guy, very open-minded, and he and I don't talk politics, but he was asking me a lot of questions. And what I found fascinating, at one point, I said to him, I think that people, it's instructive to see a news outlet print or post the comments of at the time, former of President Trump when he was the president first time, but they don't repeat the entire. I said I thought that was fascinating. I told him they they depicted him saying the fine people on both sides. So we were talking, to me, it's the fine people hoax. I use that expression
Right.
that
Right.
Trump's fine people on both sides.
Okay.
And I told him, wait a minute, um, there aren't. That's not what he said. You have to look further in the transcript. And he said, I'm not talking about the Nazis. I'm talking about fine people on both sides of the debate of the statues. What was fascinating about this conversation with my friend, my comedian friend, is that he said, what are you talking about? What hoax? He didn't know. Now, I'm not telling people what to think, but they should know that a lot of people don't believe that Trump said that. A lot of them look at that as a hoax. He didn't ever even heard of the hoax. He didn't ever even heard that people thought that. And I told him, you should look at other news sources because you should know at least that some people think that,
Yeah.
even if you don't agree with it. But it shows you just how the you know the tunnel vision people have in the
There's an
one
echo
thing
chamber. Yeah.
that's it. Broaden it a little bit. And I was educating him. And I don't mean to sound like I'm looking down. I just mean he didn't know. He goes, what? Really?
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people are many people are having open conversations for the first time. So just today, I saw a conversation between AOC. So I will say a lot of people don't look at her properly. They think that she's dumb, and I think that's a huge mistake. There's some people on the right who think AOC is dumb, and she's nothing. She's anything but that. She's very intelligent, and she had mentioned, I think, to Joy, not Joy Behar, but Joy Reid, that this one of Trump's ads was very effective. That and might have really swung a lot of people. Um, and it was cool because AOC was able to give a different perspective about Trump to this pundit who never before would allow it almost. No, how could you say? But they were having a real nice back and forth. And I think a lot of people are having that today. They feel free to talk and to hear the other side.
Yeah. I mean, to go with AOC, Bill Maher is also another one who's just starting to say things like, "Hey, you know what? We got to listen to what went wrong here. You know, the Democrats, and if they don't listen, then it's gonna continue happening." And I think a lot of them are getting it, though. I think AOC even took off the pronouns out of her site, right? I mean, that was big. So I mean, things like that are happening, and so you see a change. But if you're asking me a couple of things, reasons why I think Trump won, I think there's several, but you mentioned two big ones. So if we're looking at I would say one thing, Ruben, is that, and I hear from my students too, is social media. And they brought up one TikTok, they go, Mr. Heckler, he's on TikTok everywhere, on all of TikTok. You know, I mean, he's on a lot. And I'm not on TikTok. I'm not saying I've never been on TikTok, but I've been maybe 2 or 3 times. So I'm that's not my platform I go on. So they're just sharing with me some pieces that they've seen, and they go, "He's huge, Mister. He's big. He's bigger than her." And so I realized that he was really good at hitting social media. I'm on X a lot, so even on X, at least X, some people would say, "Oh, it's more right leaning." No, I would say it's more, if you really look at X, you'll see that it's pretty balanced. It just allows people to have free reign, to have free speech, and that's why Elon Musk bought that platform. People might disagree. That's fine. People are leaving the platform on the left. I think that's a mistake. You want to have your voices heard. You want to have some dialogue, in the discourse that's happening there. But they don't. Well, a lot of people just decide, hey, you know what? I don't like what's happening here, so I'm going to go. Or at least I don't like what the results were, and it's all Elon Musk's fault. No, I just think that without that, we didn't have. When I say we, I mean the Republicans didn't have that in 2020. It was not run by Elon Musk. And so they even this is ridiculous. They even kicked out Trump off of
Can you
Twitter.
believe
Is that
they
crazy?
deplatformed Trump,
What the
banned him from Twitter? I was just
that,
thinking about that today.
that's how clouded their thinking it was. They're not even they don't care. Free speech was not to them. It's like we know what the free speech. Disinformation is all on the right side.
Yes.
No.
So I do want to point this. So this is maybe a venting session that has been built up for 4 years, because you and I have talked about this.
Yeah,
You and
for
I have
sure.
talked about, should we talk politics, and I have often, I'm the one who says
Yeah.
I'm a little right.
Yeah,
I'm the one
you
who's
are the one.
nervous.
Right.
I'm the nervous one.
Hmm.
Um, but so I will say that the deep the misinformation thing.
Yeah.
So I had to tell my friend, that is not how debate works. You do not tell me what's misinformation.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. I felt like I was talking to one of my students, by the way. And I try not to sound this way, and I apologize when I do, but I tell them debate works where you bring something to the table and I bring something to the table. And I don't call you misinformation. I don't call what you're saying. If you don't win with what you're debating, don't call me spreading disinformation or
Right.
misinformation. That's just not how it works. Sorry. But this has become part of the discussion now,
Yeah.
and I'm glad it's going away.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think people are willing to have those conversations because you have to have them because let's be honest. it's a pendulum, right? It's going to the right now, but it's eventually going to go back to the left. And why can't we, when it does that, pendulum, going to the left, we need to be able to continue to have sensible and good conversations. Um, and so that's just something I'm hoping that will come out of all this. And I think it is coming out of it, and like you mentioned. So one thing I mentioned is the platforms, the social media was definitely looked different this time than 2020. And I would say the second thing is, and, this it's there's I think there's three or four reasons, Ruben, but I would say this one. It's still in my mind. I was watching Trump give speeches at 2 o'clock in the morning a couple of times. And one time was the night before the election. And so he was giving his speech. I'm like, man, he had already been to like three places, and he out hustled her. He outworked her. He went to McDonald's. He put on a uniform regarding the whole trash. He dressed himself like somebody who worked for a trash company. And so he did things like that. He just kept outworking her. And so I think that's big. Someone who's putting in the time, the hours, she did not put the time in like he did.
Well,
She put time in, but not like him.
well, well, don't you? I want to say that what you just said about him dressing up as the garbage man, being in the garbage truck, and going to McDonald's and serving fries. It's not just, don't you agree though? It's a combination of what you just said there and what you previously said about social media is because don't you agree somebody could outwork you, but they're doing all
Yeah,
the wrong things and
sure.
lose. Yeah, he worked the right things. Like those that right? Because
Yeah.
the garbage truck thing was so important that you just mentioned and the McDonald's because it's such a picture in our minds now.
Yeah.
He so trolled her with the garbage truck thing, and we can't forget those pictures, those memes.
No.
There's no memes from Kamala's side. There
No.
are no memes.
And that's what my students, I'm only going with what my students are telling me. And I'm just laughing because I've never had a time, Ruben, where I've taught where so many kids were telling me he's going to win, mister. And I go, really? You think? I mean, when I heard so much of that, and I live in a mostly Democratic, demographics, Latinos, and even the kids who like Kamala would tell me, oh, I think he's still going to win, mister. Even though I like her, I want her to win. He's going to win. I go, why? And just exactly what you just said, Ruben, because I see McDonald's memes, mister. A lot of them. I see the garbage. I go, okay. He's working smart, like you said. He's working smart. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think you can't look at that and say that didn't matter. It did matter. It was big. It was humongous. And I think that's what got him the these are definitely all the reasons you mentioned with the Latinos, and even having the freedom to talk in front of your colleagues. Now, I don't always like doing that because I think it's about 90%, 10% where I work, left to right. And so I'm also trying to be sensitive because I know they're not doing too well. Not, and but if someone asks me, I'll tell them. I'll have a conversation with them. I don't flee from that. But definitely, things are different right now. That's for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about what this means for education. And I'll leave the last. So I looked at Trump's speech. It was a very short speech, but
Yeah.
he went through the bullet points of what he's going to say. One of the things I mentioned to my friend is that I want to go to the source. I don't need to go to a news source to interpret what he says. Let's go to what he says and then analyze it. So that's what I did. I didn't go to any websites. I just watched his speech, very short. And among his uh, bullets, among his points that he made, he mentioned respect rights of parents, empower parents to local school boards, to hire and fire teachers. Ensure our so I'm going to go back to a couple of these because the last one's important. The most important that people are talking about all over the place. Okay. So number 3, he mentions ensure our classes are focused on subjects and not some of the radical ideas that, are on the left. This is, of course, a right's interpretation of it. I'm admitting that the conservative is saying this, Ensure our classes are focused on subjects. Number 4, teach students to love their country and not hate their country. Number 5, support bringing back prayer. Notice I'm not skipping that. I'm not saying he's
Yeah.
right. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he did say that for number 5. Number 6, I'm going to go back. Number 6, he said safe, secure, and drug-free. 7, give all parents the right to choose schools. And I'm assuming he's talking about vouchers.
Vouchers, yeah.
This is old as the hills, this idea. It's obviously coming back we've talked about it on this channel. So he's mentioning that. Give all parents the right to choose schools. Number 8, ensure students have Okay, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this. Before you get too worried, viewer who leans left, point number 8 and point number 9 are very innovative. I used to work at, so I'm going to just say it and then we'll go back. He says, ensure students have project-based learning. And number 9, ensure students have access to internships and work experiences. He definitely has the ear. Somebody is in Trump's ear from either big picture learning, or I bet you it's big picture learning, somebody related to something that's like big picture. Because I used to work at a school like this, and it is all about, that's the language of big picture, and it's very innovative. It's very powerful, this idea of project-based learning, and even more innovative, internships, giving students work experiences, even in the context of a school day. So this is not necessarily going back to the 50s, folks.
No.
Number 10, ensure school career counselors. And 11, here's the big one, closing of the Department of Education. But here's the good news. If you lean a certain way and you don't like some of these points, he's saying it's going to go back to the states. And look, if I know some of this is going to influence a state like California, but if the states have the power, they can run it the way they want to run it. If people don't like it, they can leave. So I think this idea of what a state wants to, I'm sure most people in Kentucky don't want transgender ideas and those kind of things being taught to their kids. That's Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, can I just share something? I think one of the travesties, or one of the things that is sad, is that what we have is some people will look at that list that you shared and add things to it that he didn't say, right? Well, he's gonna destroy special ed, right? And I'm like, well, he never said that. But well, I'm assuming because no. Let's go by the list of things that he shared, and that's where we go off key and they go, oh, he's he's a Hitler. No, it's these are the things that are important to him. You might not agree with some of them, but don't add to the list, right?
He special ed is law. It's law. So
Exactly.
you can't really change that. He mentioned accreditation. So go back to point number let me look at the point. Focus on subjects.
Can you
Number
put those
3 maybe
points up at the end of the video? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The idea of accreditation is probably related to what the subjects are being taught, what is being taught in the classroom. And so it sounds like there's going to be a focus on what is being taught. And if you're teaching some kind of thing that is not part maybe of the state standard, then perhaps your accreditation is going to be under review. So, hey, you know what? We're under review. People are really losing their minds over the closing of the Department of Education. Let me ask you a question, Jacob. Have you ever gotten an email from the Department of Education, a review, encouragement? Did you ever get a check in the mail saying thank you for bringing your In all your years, have you ever
No,
heard anything about the Department of Education? Have
no,
they influenced your teaching at all?
no. They have some policies that I don't always agree with, like No Child Left Behind or things like that, that maybe are good for a couple states, but not for all 50 states.
People think that because it has education in the title, that it's, oh my gosh, we can't get rid of that. That must be the most important thing ever. That's, oh my goodness, they're closing the department. Now there's not going to be any more education. Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be, I mean, that's a good point though, Ruben. I mean, every state is going to run their state the way they want to run it regarding what's important to us, what's important for Louisiana or California or Arizona. What is going to be our big slogan or thing that we're going to, march to. Every state's different. And you know what? Since the Department of Education has come about, we went from like number one to like 44 in the world in education. So it hasn't helped us to have the Department of Education people. So this is at least something. And you know what? We have to also remember this, Ruben. Elections have consequences, meaning you're going to go in different direction whenever a new administration's in. If Kamala would have won, right, there would have been a different feel, right? She would be looking at things that she feels that's important for our country, and then she'd have the prerogative because she would have the mandate, but she doesn't have the mandate. She definitely lost here, and so Trump, at least we have to give him that opportunity to go forward in this area. And myself as an educator, and you sharing regarding, cutting this department, the world's going to keep revolving. It's not going to end just because this department's gone. And personally, I think there might be a couple other departments that should be gone too, but for sure, Department of Education.
Very good. Well, the cat's out of the bag. I hope you have not lost respect for us. And oh, I didn't ask you who you voted for, Jacob.
Oh, I voted. I don't. I voted for Donald Trump, Ruben, and that sounds weird because we've not been political on this channel at all. Really,
You
we try
haven't.
to stay away from that. We don't want to lose people. We want, we're looking at education, but definitely education has been affected this last couple of weeks with this election. So it'd be probably wrong if we didn't address it. And yeah, we're voting members, right? We're voting people, so we're going to vote what our
I
heart
do.
takes us.
I do want to say though that in closing, it doesn't mean we agree with everything this man has said, and it's just frustrating to hear. So you support this? You support when he said that? No. Just like I wouldn't ask you, do you support when Biden did this? When he said this? That you don't rubber stamp everything they've said. That's not how
Right.
politics works. It's never worked that way. But we march on. Just thought we'd share that. And thank you for watching, everybody. Tell us what you think. Leave a comment and subscribe and like. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.